Hey guys, it's Carly. Today I've got two cards to share with you. They use the same supplies but different techniques. So let's get going on the first one. So I shared this card earlier in the week and I got a bunch of requests to see the process in action. So here's what we're doing. We're starting with the MFT Pressed Poinsettia set. This is the large flower and this is the base layer, so it's solid. And I'm just inking it up in Distress Oxide saltwater taffy and stamping it down onto my panel. After stamping the saltwater taffy layer a few times, I've got Distress Oxide Festive Berries that I'm applying to my stamp with a blending brush before stamping down onto that panel. So I love using the blending brush because it lets me decide where I want to put that second color of ink, and it lets me create a really soft blend. So there's no harsh lines when you stamp it down onto my first layer. Okay, so once I've got as much Festive Berries on there as I want and I've got a good kind of ombre look, I'm going to apply the last color of red. So I'm going to do this darkest red, it's Lumberjack Plaid, and I'm going to apply it again with a blending brush so I can soften those edges and control it, and then stamp it down onto my panel and repeat until I'm happy. Next, I'm going to clean that solid stamp, get it out of the way, get the detail layer loaded up in my MISTI, ink it up in the Lumberjack Plaid, and stamp it down onto my panel. Then I'm going to repeat that whole process with my next poinsettia. So I've got that first layer in the saltwater taffy, and then I'm going to use the blending brushes again to add the other shades of red. I won't make you watch the whole thing over again, but that's what the plan is. I'm going to finish my flowers with some little black berries. If you want to use a different ink, not a Distress Oxide black, then just make sure your flowers are dry. Otherwise you'll get kind of a chalky finish. It won't be as sharp and black as you probably want it to be. Then I'm going to load up a sentiment from the Christmas Wishes set, and I always do this and I always show it, but before I commit to stamping it on my project, I'm going to throw a piece of acetate over my project that I keep in my MISTI. I'm going to ink up my stamp and stamp onto the acetate, and that lets me just check my spacing and all that kind of good stuff, see if I actually like it there, see if it's straight, all that kind of thing. Then if it's not, if I don't like it, I can move the stamp, try again. If I do like it, I can skip straight to cleaning off that acetate, inking it up, and stamping it again onto my project. Okay, so I'm going to use that sentiment for the next card, so I'm going to just leave it in my MISTI. Then I want to add a little bit of red ink splatter to my card, but I don't really trust myself to get anything wet here. So I've got a jewel picker that I'm going to grab, and I'm going to grab the darkest red ink pad, and I'm going to put my picker onto the ink pad kind of like it's a stamp, and then stamp it down onto my card to make little faux splatters. So I'm going to use both ends of my jewel picker, so I have two different sizes of little ink splatter dots, and I'm going to use two different colors of red, so I have that variation as well. So it's just kind of a fun little cheat. If you don't have a jewel picker, there's probably another tool on your desk that you could use, maybe like the end of a paintbrush or something, and just try it and see what you come up with. I also ended up grabbing my black pen and adding a little faux black splatter as well. So there you can see the finished product. I love how it turned out. I love that multicolor effect on the solid stamps. Now for my second card, I want to use that sentiment. I want to keep it in the same place. I'm just keeping the designs of the cards the same to keep it easy. So I'm going to clean off that sentiment stamp really well with some stamp cleaner and a wipe, and then also with my stamp chamois, just to make sure there's no black ink residue left, because I'm going to stamp it and emboss it in clear. I could have also used white ink and white powder, but since I'm going to be using clear for the other part of this card technique, I didn't think of that. So anyway, I've got my stamp clean. I'm prepping it with a little bit of anti-static powder, and then I'm going to, like I said, stamp that sentiment in clear and then emboss it with clear powder. After melting that powder with my heat gun, I'm going to put that panel back in my MISTI. I've got my sentiment stamp cleaned and taken out, and I'm going to do the detail layer for that large poinsettia. This time I'm going to stamp it in black. Then I'm going to add the berries in the middle, also in black. And by the way, I'm not using the black oxide for these because I'm going to be doing clear ink over the top and I don't want anything to smear. So I'm using a black ink that is waterproof. So just something to note. Okay, so now I've positioned the solid layer of the poinsettia over the details that I've already stamped, and I'm going to ink that up in clear embossing ink and stamp it over those details. Now, I'm not a good stamper. I almost always ink and stamp more than once, which is why I use my MISTI religiously, but especially when I'm using clear ink, I really like to do that. Once I'm sure I've got enough, I'm going to add the clear embossing powder. I'm going to heat with my heat gun, and there you can see the finished flower. I'm going to repeat that process for the next two flowers, and then I'm going to start adding some ink on top. So I've got the same 3 colors that I used on my first card, and I'm going to start applying them with some blending tools, and the embossed areas are going to resist the ink. So I just love this emboss resist technique. I think it's so fun. So you can see I'm going to keep applying the inks, keep blending them together. These 2 cards are the first time I've used these 3 inks together as a blend, and I just love it. I think it's definitely going to appear on more holiday cards this season. And after I'm done with the ink blending, I'm going to grab a clean dry paper towel and wipe off the embossed areas, get any bit of excess ink that's still hanging out there. To finish this card, and unfortunately I didn't record this part, but I did a few little water splatters, but not too many since I didn't use watercolor cardstock, and then a few faux black splatters with a pen. And there you can see how that one turned out. So thank you so much for watching, you guys. I hope that you liked seeing the 2 different cards with the same supplies and different techniques. I hope you're inspired to craft today, and I hope you get to. Thanks so much and happy crafting, guys. Bye!